symbols in pop culture more powerful than the mask of a superhero. Popularized through the pulpy serials of Golden Age comics, then the colorful, campy adventures of the Silver Age, masked adventurers came to embody the ultimate power fantasy. Fantastic strength in the hands of incorruptible paragons of good. It's these archetypes and their iconography that writer Alan Moore and artist Dave Gibbons sought to deconstruct in the pages of Watchmen, a groundbreaking series that explored a darker take on the infallible heroes of the era. While writers have returned to the world of Watchmen over the years, few works embody Moore's ethos as strongly as HBO's 2019 series, which brings Moore's dark, deconstructed heroes into the present day. Both versions of Watchmen use masks to comment on heroes and their place in a larger world, albeit in wildly different ways. In the original, Moore and Gibbons drew attention to the garish costumes of classic comics by placing their heroes in a world similar to ours. This has the effect of isolating the characters from their setting, an effect that's lost when other creators give the characters a grittier makeover. The sense of isolation permeates every chapter of Watchmen, heightening the disconnect between our struggling heroes and the increasing moral ambiguity of the world around them. While masks in Moore's Watchmen symbolize the death of the traditional superhero, the sequel explores masks in a much more political, polarized society. Shifting from New York to Tulsa, Oklahoma, the show's conflict is waged between two masked groups: the Tulsa Police Department and the 7th Cavalry, a white supremacist group inspired by the long-dead Rorschach. While it's no question who the real villains are here, the show also draws attention to how masks have intensified the department's authoritarian methods. The masks were introduced as a means of protecting officers from cavalry attacks, but since then they've given the department a way to bend the laws it's sworn to uphold, denying suspects basic rights while answering to nobody.
Sir, I'm with the FBI. Are your civil rights being violated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry. I was just kidding. I don't care.
We see many of these abuses of power through the eyes of our protagonist, Angela Abar, aka Sister Knight. As the point man in the war against the cavalry, Angela is seen abducting suspects without warrants, intimidating and even brutalizing them. While masked characters like Rorschach or the Comedian change as society grows more violent, Lindelof's heroes take this a step further, using their anonymity to force their own brand of law and order on society at large. Opposite Angela and her fellow cops, we have the villainous 7th Cavalry, who have co-opted the imagery of Rorschach from the original. This isn't a coincidence either. While Rorschach was never associated with white nationalists like the cavalry, his conservative-leaning, hard-line methods seem to have galvanized them into action, shown through the homemade masks they wear as tribute. Every depiction of Watchmen focuses on superheroes' place in society, though most rarely step outside the setting Moore and Gibbons established. By replacing the nuclear panic of the 80s with racial violence in rural America, Lindelof is able to build something entirely new for the series, reflecting on how masks shape society and the people living in it. The struggle between the department and the cavalry forms the broader conflict of the show, but Watchmen also brings the story inward, examining how each of its heroes and villains are shaped by the literal and figurative masks they wear. Since childhood, Angela Abar has been plagued by tragedy, losing her family and later her colleagues during the cavalry's first attack. Instead of expressing any of the grief she's built up, Angela throws herself into her work, burying her feelings using a behavior that's literally called masking.
Angela, it's okay to cry.
Maybe later.
As the police begin implementing masked heroes, Angela channels all of her trauma into the persona of Sister Knight, escalating her violent behavior and distancing herself from her family. Angela's mask may have made her an effective crime fighter, but it consumes her sense of empathy, leaving her with a worldview that's as black and white as the costume she wears. The concept of masking behavior is taken even further through the character of Wade Tillman, aka Lookingglass. As one of the countless victims of the alien attack from Moore's original, Wade copes with his trauma by masking every trace of his vulnerability. Organizing a support group of other survivors to project stability, Wade secretly outfits his home with doomsday prep kits, even coating his clothes with his mask's material. Through his alter ego, Wade buries his own vulnerability by examining others, hiding his face behind a literal one-way mirror. While Tillman means well, the power his mask gives him keeps him from being accountable for himself or his impact on society. Instead of confronting his past or his actions, Wade often retreats behind his reflective mask, distancing himself from the world outside. While Sister Night and Lookingglass are recent examples, the character of Will Reeves, aka Hooded Justice, gives us the deepest look into the cost of Watchmen's masks. As a survivor of the 1921 Tulsa massacre and an attempted lynching at the hands of his fellow officers, Will creates the persona of Hooded Justice to punish the white supremacists who end up forming the cavalry. Much like Angela, Will masks his anger and fear by channeling his feelings into his character, but over time he devotes more of himself to his mask than his own family. Forced to conceal his mission, his race, even his sexuality, Will's anger consumes him, alienating his wife and son, who leave him to live in Tulsa. By the time Will's story reaches the present day, he's completely given himself to his mask and his mission, having given up on reconnecting with his family. Within the broader story of Watchmen, Will's story is a look into Angela's future. He's a vengeful shell of his former self, embracing his inner darkness instead of confronting it. The heroes and villains of Watchmen shape and are shaped by the masks they wear, but what separates them is how they confront the traumas behind their personas. For many, this turning point comes with the show's climactic battle and the reveal of the show's primary antagonist, Lady True. Growing up in the shadow of her father, Adrian Veidt, True develops a pervasive sense of insecurity. Attempting to mask this by ascending to godhood, True dons an all-white costume and attempts to steal the powers of Dr. Manhattan. Much like his daughter, Adrian Veidt's unwillingness to abandon his mask is all-consuming. Spending most of the show in a mysterious manor house, Veidt spends most of his days battling the villainous Game Warden in battles of wits. However, as more of the context behind his exile is revealed, Veidt's actions are seen in a new light. He isn't a hero attempting to escape captivity, but a murderer trying to hide from his guilt in a fantasy. Entirely committed to his heroic image, Veidt's mask only drops when he learns of True's plan, resolving to stop his daughter.
She is clearly a raging narcissist whose ambition knows no limits. Takes one to know one.
Even in the face of death, True can't abandon the mask she's made for herself, staying behind to die along with her device. Fittingly, her father retreats into his own delusion.
Who do you think you are to hold judgment over me, huh? I saved mankind. Again. And you have the audacity to...
Only to be brought to justice by Lookingglass. While Watchmen's villains are unable to escape their masks and the traumas that create them, Angela and her friends get a more optimistic resolution. With True and the cavalry beaten, Angela has a heart-to-heart with Will, who implores her not to make the same mistakes he has.
You can't heal from a mask yet. Wounds need air.
It's this revelation that lets Angela confront a lifetime of trauma instead of channeling it into a violent persona, giving her the peace needed to do good without a mask. Likewise, Lookingglass gains some inner peace of his own. After bringing Adrian Veidt to justice for masterminding the attack, Tillman is finally able to face the world instead of isolating himself from it. Intercut with these stories, we see other supporting characters shedding their masks while restoring order to Tulsa. The symbolism behind this imagery is clear. Instead of hiding from vulnerability and accountability, our heroes are finally able to reclaim their old lives and put society on the path to healing. Without question, Lindelof's Watchmen has a neater, more definitive ending than the original, emphasizing our heroes' ability to move beyond their masks and the trauma they embody, while our villains are overcome by them. There have been countless sequels, prequels, and reimaginings of Watchmen over the years, but few break the creative ground achieved by Lindelof's sequel. Expanding on the themes and ideas introduced by Moore and Gibbons, Lindelof and his crew build a bittersweet tale about trauma, the masks it forms, and the divisions in society they create. Yet, underneath it all, 2019's Watchmen is a story of hope. The masked heroes of old might be gone, but a new breed rises to take their place, unburdened by the flaws of past generations. In Moore's own words,